you're not
as
just
well.
happening to just think, oh, I want to go and do hairdressing, but actually, I've never had any experience in hairdressing. And then when you start your course, who knew you had to stand up all day? I've had that off a young person. I don't like doing this, Jackie. I
Yeah,
have
I've
to
had it.
stand
Oh, I
up all
didn't.
day.
Yeah,
Who knew?
I've
So
had. I
it's,
didn't
yeah,
realise bricklaying would be. You
you have to
get
work
wet.
outdoors and
Yeah,
in the cold, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Let's Make It Work, the podcast, where we showcase voices from across the sector, all united by one mission, making modern work experience truly possible for every young person. Let's Make It Work aims to inform and inspire educators and employers about the art of the possible, share real-life examples and tangible takeaways you can implement in your own settings, and importantly, to acknowledge the systemic barriers many of you face while offering real-world solutions that work now. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe and share our channel. It helps more educators, employers and partners join this movement. I'm Sian, your host, and my guests today are Ryan Gibson, National System Leader at Lift Schools, and Jackie McGarry, Careers Leader at Catcote Academy. Today's episode is all about a whole school approach to modern work experience, looking at different settings and embedding an inclusive offer, and also how to get that leadership buy-in. So let's dive in and let's make it work. Hi Ryan, hi Jackie, great to see you today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and your link to work experience?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Gibson. I'm National Lead for Futures and Pathways at Lift Schools, one of the largest multi-academy trusts in England. We've got 59 schools, 34,000 young people right across England, and my role is to lead careers provision across our whole trust. I'm also lucky enough to be Vice Chair of the National Quality and Career Standard Consortium Board and President of the Career Development Institute, the CDI.
Hi there, I'm Jackie McGarry. So I'm the Careers Leader, Hartlepool Aspire Trust, which is based in Hartlepool. Very small trust, so we have one secondary school, one post-19 provision, Catcote Futures, and two sixth form colleges. In terms of work experience, my role is to coordinate all things careers, really, which includes work experience. So I'm responsible for engaging with employers, I'm responsible for the personal guidance, and I'm responsible for liaising with relevant staff to embed careers within the curriculum.
How would you say work experience fits into your day-to-day kind of role and responsibilities?
Yeah, in my day-to-day role, my responsibility is to strategically oversee careers provision across our trust and experiences of workplaces, work experience, modern work experience is a vital component of that. Although I'm not organising every school's work experience, I'm working with the regional education directors, our head teachers, our career leaders in our individual schools to produce the very best quality careers provision that they can, and work experience as a core component of that.
So it's a real whole team approach.
A whole team approach.
Yes, I cannot wait. How about you, Jackie?
Yeah, so I'm the careers lead and the careers advisor. So my day-to-day responsibilities are strategic and operational. So I work really closely with our senior leaders to embed the careers programme, of which work experience includes, but it's not just a standalone thing for us. It really starts early from Key Stage 3 and it's embedded. So these, as Ryan said, these experiences are embedded within our in our culture. It's a golden thread. So those meaningful encounters with employers in and out of school and college start really early, and it's very progressive. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that, about
Definitely.
how we do it at Catcote.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to getting into this kind of that universal approach, starting early, like you say, but then also how do we really get this personalised learning offer where work experiences are enhancing the curriculum, what happens in the classroom, outside of the classroom, like you say, Ryan. So brilliant. If we can just kind of pick up on what you've both said about that wider team and why that whole school approach matters. Would you say something about that, Jackie, at
Yeah,
Catcote?
absolutely. So I've been the careers lead in Catcote for 11 years now, and it's always been a priority in our school. Our students are the furthest removed from the labour market because of the special education needs and demographically where we live. lack of industry on our doorstep. So it's really important that our students have a real quality provision. So when I first started, obviously I started work there 11 years ago as a careers advisor, and my job's evolved, but as has my team. So I now have I have 37 hours careers lead, I have a careers admin, I have a team of 8 job coaches, and I have a careers assistant as well. So I think that just shows that it does come from the top down, that it is a priority. It's just one of our strategic objectives. Careers is embedded within our personal development, and our school development plans as well. So yeah, it's grown, and as a result, the impact has grown, and the improved destinations has really grown as well. So with some fantastic stories really from young people who've maybe started in Key Stage 3, and I've seen them grow into wonderful young adults who are now living their best adult lives
And that's
as
what
a
it's all
result.
about, isn't it?
And
That's
that's
what
what
it's
it
all
is
about.
absolutely all about, yeah.
And how rewarding for you as a careers team and your wider whole school team
100%.
as well.
And it's not just staff resource, it's having a careers room, somewhere to call your own. It's having resources, budget attached to that. It's having the time to be able to go out and do employer engagement. And I think because I am 37 hours a week with a team of people supporting me, that does show. I don't think I could do it on a full teaching timetable a couple of days a week. It would be impossible.
Having that like sufficient time and
priority.
resource for careers leadership.
100%, yeah.
How about you, Ryan? What does it mean for you in practice to have a whole school approach?
Yeah, I think very, very similar to Jackie, actually. And I've had the privilege of visiting Jackie at Catcote, and it is an incredible place. And I think what Jackie said that definitely chimes with me is team. It is a team effort, and often a careers leader in a school can sometimes feel isolated. The individual who's responsible for all of this work, and it all rests on their shoulders. And I think what we've tried to do at our trust is evolve that thinking. So of course the careers leader is responsible for leading provision, leading work experience in their school. And that's absolutely right. They know their children best, they know their communities best, they know their families best, they know their employer partners best. So they're responsible for leading the provision. But we join them together in a network. So they're connected to other career leaders across our trust. And we meet 5 times a year, twice nationally, 3 times in regions. So they can come together and share really good practice. They can work together, they can share ideas, they can innovate, they can collaborate. And that's proven really useful. My job is to steer that ship, to bring those groups together. And where there are challenges, whether that be employer engagement, whether that be a challenging labour market, whether that be aspirations of young people, we can build partnerships at a national, regional level to support our schools to deliver high quality experiences of workplaces. Yeah, and I think one of the things we've done when kind of DFE signalled a direction of travel towards thinking about experiences of workplace at Key Stage 3, we mobilised some of our schools to develop models, approaches that could work in their context. So 5 or 6 different models created in different contexts, and then our schools tested those. So those 6 schools tested those approaches, and then we're able to share them back with our network. And now we're looking at how can the network of individual schools take those models, those examples, and adapt them for their own context. So really collaborating, working together, learning from best practice, but also not being afraid to try new things. And certainly, I guess the collective support of a network or a team is enabling you to do that. And just as Jackie said, at individual school level in our trust, we've got regional education directors engaged in this, head teachers engaged in this, empowering the career leaders to lead this work.
I'd love to explore that a little bit more in this conversation, Ryan. So thank you for bringing that up. You both kind of touched on CPD, and that is a big part of the updated Gatsby benchmarks, and this whole school approach to careers to work experiences. Absolutely, a great idea. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But then the CPD that comes alongside that, I think, is on a lot of people's minds. So would you mind saying a little bit more about the detail of that, Jackie? You've mentioned 4 a year.
Some teachers might be a little bit anxious about careers. They didn't go into, they went to be a teacher or a careers advisor. And I think sometimes it is about breaking down those perceptions that some teachers may have. I think once they see the successes in terms of the destinations, we have students coming in, alumni doing assemblies, and how they can link their subject to careers. It really does inspire them to get more involved, I think. It's really also important that they do understand things like the Gatsby benchmarks, the CDI learning outcomes. And we do have regular meetings, as I say, team meetings, twilights, 4 times a year. So really is a whole school approach. And you can't do it in isolation. Like Ryan said, it's the careers leader's job is to coordinate that. But really, they can bring so much, and there's so many quick fixes as well. So every lesson in our school, the first presentation, whether it's an English lesson, whether it's a maths lesson, there's a link to careers on there. So even if it's a 5-minute conversation around what sort of jobs you could get, why is maths important? So they might talk about being a bricklayer and understanding how many. So you can see that we do that as daily. It does start really early, and it's a daily thing where the students are recognising the skills that they need and linking those subjects to careers that they may want in the future.
And it's part of that routine, and it's happening day in, day out, and that consistency helps as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think Jackie made a really good point that actually for work experience to be impactful, it needs to be embedded within the wider careers program. And you just mentioned teachers there, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because teachers are experts in their field. They deliver their subject. They do that really, really well. And children in school spend most of their time in a classroom. And so they build a trusted relationship with their teacher, and they will ask their teacher for advice and guidance. So it's really important. When we were updating the Gatsby benchmarks, it's really important that staff development featured in that. It wasn't there previously certainly not in benchmark 4. So now it's about how can we upskill our teachers to know about the entirety of the careers program and how to support children when they have those conversations or ask those questions. And that's not necessarily about a teacher becoming an expert in the nuances of the labour market or an expert in every aspect of career guidance, but it is about integrating that into their development so that they know how to signpost young people, they know where to signpost them to in the school, for example, to the careers leader, the careers advisor, or certain websites or platforms that the school might use. So I think placing work experience as part of the entire careers program is absolutely essential.
Absolutely.
If you want to get the impact that we all want to see.
It's not a standalone activity, work experience. It's got to be, but there's lots of different models, isn't there? And I think historically, when you think of work experience, when I was at school way back in the 80s, it was a 1-week block of work experience. Now I think it is about looking at what you're already doing. It's about mapping what you're already doing. So there's probably lots of fantastic practice going on across your school or college, and the first step really would be to look at that and then to enhance that, so to bring lessons to life with your employer network, because I don't struggle really to get employers on board with our school. They're really keen to take part and come in and do assemblies and have industry visits. But I think I think that's key really, isn't it? Their employer engagement is really important. Because without the employers, we couldn't have a work experience program. So it's really important to enable employers to understand the student needs. So communication's definitely key, and really respect as well. So keeping in touch with employers. We've even offered CPD for employers in the past for autism, for example, where they maybe felt a little bit nervous about taking on a young person with autism as a placement. So our autism lead has gone out and done some autism training for their whole staff team. So it's things like that really that I think you need to really sort of think about when you're engaging with employers. Our students, and again we're a pilot for the EqualX project as well. In Key Stage 3 they really are using that. They have bespoke enterprise lessons, so they have 2 lessons a week. And within those enterprise lessons, we have our own Catcote skills. So the students are investigating what those skills are. They're able to sort of identify the skill strengths, but also any areas that they need to develop. Within those enterprise lessons, as I said earlier, I meet really weekly with Lisa, who's TLR responsibility, and then we look at the different areas of enterprise that they do, and then we bring people in, or we take young people out to industry. And then in Key Stage 4, they really are exploring because they have 2 lessons a week for work-related learning. So they do a 9-week block in 6 different areas. So they'll do horticulture, catering, health and social care, media, etc. And again, every term, that student in the work-related learning session will either have an employer encounter in or out of school. So if it's catering only on Monday, our catering Key Stage 4 group went to McDonald's, and the franchisee showed them around the restaurant. They got a free lunch, which they were buzzing about. But what it really does is it opens their eyes to what they can be. So we have a shop in the town centre, and we have a cafe. So it's at our training venues. So students can work in there on a weekend and through the holidays and get paid work. So students in our 6th form will do a 12-week programme where they'll go. I always say it's really, so they go, oh, Jackie, I don't want to go to the hospital. Well, have you ever been? Have you ever worked in a hospital? What does that look like? Well, no. So why not give it a go? And we always encourage them to try new things, because I think it's really important for young people to understand what they don't want to do as much as what they do want to do. And I think these employer-led projects really give the students, opens their eyes, open to what jobs is in a sector. So, for example, in North East Hospital, the students will work in 4 different areas within that hospital over a 12-week period. So they'll work in the cafe, the mailroom, the mattress department, and on the wards with the hostesses. And it's been so successful. And it's really inspired some of our young people to go on to really make informed decisions about what they want to do. So yeah, that's the sort of the model that we've got. And then in Key Stage, Phase 4, they're making that informed decision based on all of these experiences that they've had, and through the personal guidance. So I offer the careers guidance, and I know these students personally. We really can then match their skill set aspirations to what they want to do, and hopefully get the foot in the door with an employer to break down barriers and perceptions that some employers might have about employing young people with special educational needs. Somebody's got to open these doors for our students, because sometimes their parents can't open them for them. So I think these doors are then open. They're being able to prove themselves, and it does actually create real opportunities for these young people to contribute to the society in which they live and have a purpose. And that, at the end of the day, is what our careers programme is all about.
And like you say, build some of those skills as well. And
100%.
as you both said, designing experiences, multiple, of
Yeah.
workplaces that are intentionally underpinned by those learning outcomes. So whether that be skills or learning about different careers, or some of those hidden jobs within big employers, or whatever that might be. That's just brought it to life beautifully. Thank you. And I think it's useful to think of it from a young person's perspective, as you said, Ryan, building that sequence of experiences. So if you get to the point where that then results in a 2-week block placement, that is really as valuable and underpinned by this kind of quality approach as possible.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a young person a few years ago who was struggling to find a work experience placement, and he was really keen to go into kind of finance and accountancy. And he'd written off to lots of kind of banks and accountancy firms, and had either not heard back or had got rejections, and was a bit disillusioned. And the careers leader in the school managed to source a placement with an engineering firm. And I remember the look of horror on this lad's face, because he didn't want to be an engineer. So why are you sending me to an engineering firm? Of course, what he hadn't realised was he was going to the finance department in the engineering firm. And he didn't realise that, because he didn't realise actually that companies like that had that function. And then spending time in that firm, what I always remember this, when he was doing a presentation back to us at the end, he said, I never realised you could do kind of finance and accounting in places other than banks and accountancy firms. And now when I'm walking to school, I can see opportunities for me in lots of places that I
so
never realized
powerful,
they
isn't it?
exist. And I actually, I said earlier on, I've had a chance. I've known Jackie for years. I've been to Catcote several times. And the last time I was there, I think last year, I spoke to a young person in the cafe
All right.
out on work
Yeah,
experience.
the
And
bistro.
what I saw in that young lad was just confidence. He was so confident in the role that he was executing. He was so confident because of the experiences that he had. He was very confident about what he was going to go on and do in the future.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, he has a challenging background.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
has
yeah.
done an amazing job. And I guess the word that I was just thinking there when you were talking, Jackie, was both confidence and enhancement. So in one of our special schools, we again, we used EqualX to audit our experiences of workplaces. And what that showed is there was lots of employer encounters happening, lots of them happening in school, really practical, really, really brilliant experiences for our young people with special needs, and really inspirational experiences from a wide range of employers. But what it threw up is the opportunity to take our young people out to continue the experience they'd had in school and go and visit the setting where this experience can take place.
Yeah.
And to do that kind of at scale through curriculum is what they're working on. The questions that kind of our careers leaders are thinking about currently are our careers program enhance experiences of workplaces, but also how can our approach to experiences of workplaces enhance our careers program? So it's not seen as a silo or a one-off activity, but actually something that is integrated, embedded, and sequenced.
And I think also how can it sort of be embedded within the curriculum? So in Key Stage 5, I've mentioned our students go out and actually demonstrate. They go out twice a week into one of the phases. So what is the impact of that? So the so what really of that is the impact that it's having on the confidence. That you see the students stand taller, they're talking with excitement around the next steps, they're making informed decisions, they're applying to colleges to do different courses. But the other thing is, because of we're looking at the benchmark 4, looking at the so what and embedding that within the lessons. So we have a bespoke employability lessons. So students are evaluating their experiences within those lessons. So they're talking to the teachers are getting more involved. I go in and I deliver sessions in the employability. We bring employers in as well to do some feedback and some evaluations. And so it's that joined up approach, isn't it? It's that triangulation really of the different, the curriculum, the work experiences and the evaluation as well, I think.
Brilliant. And I think what I'm kind of listening to you both, and what I'm hearing is that we're talking about work experience, but actually these wonderful sequenced approaches that you're both describing meet so many of the benchmarks.
Yeah, well, I think clever design, smart planning gets you to think about, yes, of course, how are you performing against each of the individual criteria, against each of the benchmarks? And once you've audited that and understood that, and of course, Compass helps you to do that, you can then start to think about actually what actions can I put in place that meet multiple aspects of this, where is there a theme emerging, for example, and how do we address that theme?
Yeah, exactly that. So in addition to obviously our timetabled enterprise employability and external work experiences, we also have static careers events throughout the calendar as well. So we have a drop down STEM, or we call it STEAM because it's science, technology, engineering, arts is a big one with our students, and maths, where that's employer led as well. So it started off in COVID. We were meeting all of the benchmarks and then we weren't, because obviously we couldn't go out into the community. So we came up with an idea and a model where we would have a drop-down week. So it sort of evolved, it grew arms and legs, and then we got every special needs school in Tees Valley got involved in that. And basically what it was, they started off with a challenge. So Altrad would, which is a multinational organisation, would set a challenge. There would be a mentor to each school, and the students would have to do that STEAM challenge throughout the week. But what was great about this was that the students were then able to talk to other students on a morning, so they'd Zoom in. So I think online stuff is sometimes you think, oh, is it interact? But this really was interactive. It was meaningful. They were having conversations, two-way conversations with employers. They were having two-way conversations with Tees Valley. And then on the Friday, they would have a celebration event. So that was really good because there's probably lots of pockets of fantastic stuff already happening. And if you look at the 5 days under the Equalex that you need for Key Stage 3, when we mapped what we were already doing, we were already sort of nearly there, hitting that. So I think that would be a top tip from me to careers leaders in schools.
Absolutely. And that mapping then allows you to think about this not just in isolation, not just the job of the careers leader. So I'm thinking of one of our schools who has worked closely with AXA, the insurance firm.
All right, okay.
They ran a session into a business studies lesson, and then they took students out to visit the site.
Fantastic.
They set them a task when the AXA employee came into school and worked on that task, and then they took that into the workplace, continued to work on the task, meeting people, different people from AXA, different roles, different departments, touring the site, continuing that task. Then they finished that task back in school with AXA employees coming in and giving feedback to the young people. So in that school, that would be seen as a business studies activity, a curriculum activity that the careers leader has helped to kind of support, facilitate, but it's integrated into the curriculum objective. And I think
it really brings that subject to life, doesn't it, for the student, and inspires them to think about their future careers and what
really does.
Like.
It really does. And I think that kind of co-creation between kind of the people that know the curriculum really well, the subject teacher, and the employer who knows the labour market and the skills that they require. They know that really well. How we bring that together. So we've done a number of things at Lift over the years, creating resources with employers. So led by our teachers creating the resources, but employers feeding into that. So maths with Pinewood Studios, English with Tesco, for example, a suite of lessons that integrate careers learning into the delivery of curriculum objectives.
And building that kind of confidence and that excitement, that is just such an important part of it, isn't it? About having that engagement and
there's
actually
there's a buzz around the school. There really is a buzz around the school when the students are doing these activities, or the STEM Challenge Week, or the mock interviews. They really do. You can feel it. You can feel how excited they are. You can see how confident they become. And it's so impactful. So I think, why not do it? It's just
and you don't want children saying, "What's the point of this?"
No,
what's the point?
Absolutely not.
I think they're looking for relevance and purpose.
Yeah.
How is what I'm doing here relevant in the world beyond school?
Absolutely. So I had a young girl last year who wasn't interested in health and social care at all, and she went to NTH Solutions, which is a subsidiary of the hospital, and she did the round robin of different jobs in the hospital. She actually thought she wanted to be a hairdresser, but as a result of that experience, she is now at college studying health and social care, because she actually didn't even think about that until she actually carried it out. But she loved it, and they loved her, and she was fantastic with the patients. She had that real kind, compassionate skill set. And I think she's finished her level 1 now, going on to her level 2. So these experiences really do work, and they are very impactful. And I think, life-changing for some of our young people, especially those with special educational needs.
And you've both mentioned the importance of reflection and building that in as a very kind of planned part of workplace experiences. I wanted to just kind of ask you both about if you have members within your team who don't yet have the confidence and don't yet feel part of the wider careers team, but they absolutely have so much to bring as a teacher or as a member of the wider team. What would you say to somebody like that who is not yet involved but wants to be?
I think this is where kind of careers becomes part of everyone's responsibility, no matter kind of what lens you're looking through. So it can support the engagement of young people, and if we get young people engaged and enthusiastic, they're more likely to attend. So if you're looking at it through a lens of attendance, of course careers can be part of the solution to a challenging attendance landscape, which might actually be a challenging engagement landscape. If you've got maybe teachers who think, well, my responsibility is to deliver my subject content, it's just about looking at what needs to be delivered and how that could be delivered slightly differently to bring in this real world relevance, this purpose, this opportunity for young people to apply what they're hearing in class and testing in class, and thinking about how does that apply in the real world. And that might just, again, improve their engagement, their level of understanding, might just enhance their outcomes in that sense. And also student motivation. So we often providing an experience can motivate a student positively or negatively, in a sense. And what I mean by negative motivation isn't that they're negatively motivated. What I mean is sometimes it becomes clear what they don't want to do. And that motivates them to do something else. And once this is why you can't look at it in isolation, because there are multiple routeways and pathways to different jobs, careers, and roles, and you kind of need to help young people understand that landscape, and you have to support those who are supporting young people. So the careers advisors, absolutely crucial, but so is integrating this work into wider staff development.
I totally agree. So from my perspective, our students are sort of working, we don't sit GCSEs in our school, entry-level qualifications, but they're able to apply their functional maths and English skills in a real setting. So they're improving that when they're working in our vestry cafe, they're improving that by using the till, they're improving the communication skills when they're speaking to customers. And they really can sort of see the importance of that lesson when they're putting that into practice. And it can be a real driver for them to improve their attendance, to stick in more within those lessons. And it also reduces NEETs, I think, as well. So those young people who are maybe a little bit disengaged, if you get that placement right, they do become more confident, more engaged, and as a result attend more and have a better chance, a better outcome for their intended destination, a more positive outcome, because they're making informed decisions about what they want.
And I think what we're thinking about now is not just how we're preparing them for that destination, but to be really successful in that destination and then beyond. So whether that's college, training, apprenticeship, a sixth form, a university, whatever.
And I think it's using your destination data to form your careers programme. So for us, it is celebrating successes. It is using our alumni. It is to bring ex-students in to speak to them in assemblies or in a lesson. We've got a careers fair on the 10th of March, and one of our ex-students who works at McDonald's is manning that stall for McDonald's. So I think it is about inspiring other students to think, well, if she can do it, so can I. And I think that's really, really important to, when you're looking at your destination data, not just your intended destinations, but your long-term destination data, looking at that to form your careers programme or to have a input into that.
Absolutely. And we know there's a challenge with lagged destination data. And so I think you're absolutely right, Jack. You can take that data and you can evaluate it and you can see what you can learn from that.
Yeah.
And also that might prompt you to think, for example, okay, we seem to be preparing our students really well for their initial destination, but then there might be a dropout. So why is the dropout? How are we helping them sustain it? What are we building back into our personal development curriculum that makes them more resilient, that ensures they make more informed decisions? All of those kinds of things, and experiences of workplaces really, really help shape those intentions, because you get to test it. You see, does this feel like it is what I want to do, or is there something else I want to explore?
You're not just happening to just think, oh, I want to go and do hairdressing, but actually I've never had any experience in hairdressing. And then when you start your course, who knew you had to stand up all day? I've had that of a young person. I don't like doing this, Jackie. I have to stand up all day.
Yeah.
Who knew?
I didn't realise bricklaying would be you
have
get
to work
wet.
outdoors and get cold. Yeah. So I think having these experiences really do help the young people make informed decisions. So they are picking the right courses. And then as a result of that, they're sustaining those courses and completing those courses rather than dropping out halfway through because they didn't really understand what hairdressing was, for example, or bricklaying. And when you're doing an activity that is embedded in the curriculum, and then it's part of a program where the students may have an employer coming in to speak to them in a lesson, but then that's followed on by a visit outside. You've already looked at sort of 4 or 5 benchmarks in that area, so in that one activity. So I think it does become quite.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Jackie, but I think Equal X prompts you to think like that.
It does, absolutely. And I think if you look at the 3 strands to Equal X, so the sort of that for us, I mean, I know everybody's model's different, everybody's careers program's different, and everybody's resources are different, and I totally understand that as well. But for us, it's about looking at what we were already doing, but then really reflecting on what we were doing, how we could enhance that, how we could evaluate that, and about the so what. And that's at that stage. We're at that stage at the moment where we're looking at the continuing to evaluate the impact and how we can improve our offer.
Yeah, it means you're looking at it in the round, aren't you? You're looking at how does an encounter, which obviously isn't an experience, how does an encounter with an employer in school enhance the experience a child might have as they move out of school? And how does that experience out of school, how can that be enhanced by encounters
definitely.
back in school?
Yeah.
Or how we're using labour market, not just giving labour market information, but how are we knowing that our young people are making use of that, and how are we using that in the delivery of our curriculum?
Yeah,
or
looking
whatever
at
it might be.
growth sectors in the future.
And as you've just described, taking it a step further afterwards and then showing a real interest in what that means for intended destinations in terms of next steps and beyond. So that is, I think we've said before, haven't we, Ryan? It's great from a data perspective, and then being able to inform that really responsive provision, and also for your wider team to be able to have those conversations with individual young people, really showing an interest in their futures, but also that kind of perception from a young person really feeling listened to and heard and seen in terms of their future.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I think, I said engagement earlier on, but that's it. It's a young person feeling listened to, heard, valued, that people are taking an interest, people are able to support them, able to challenge them. All of those things are absolutely crucial.
And that importance of SLT, but I mean leadership at all levels, but SLT,
so
engagement as well.
Absolutely. So I guess I'm talking at the trust level, but at a school level, our career leaders are supported by an SLT link. Some of them are on SLT themselves. Careers is on the agenda for every school because of the reasons I've just said. Intended destinations are a high priority, securing longer term destination success, equipping young people for their futures, making sure they're engaged in their education so that they can go on to achieve the best possible outcomes for themselves. That's a key strand of work for us. It's why we're there, really. And so, yes, strong kind of links for careers leaders strategically in their school, and then a strong link from career leaders through their leadership teams to the leadership teams at the Trust.
Thank you. And what strategies would you say, Jackie, have been most effective for you at getting leaders on board?
Careers in our school has always been a priority, even in the last 11 years since I started. I just think it's grown. I think the leaders have seen the impact that it's had. They've seen an increase in destinations. And if we look at nationally, only 5% of young people go into, with special educational needs, go into paid work, yet 75% say they want a job. At Catcote, I think last year, 20% of our young people went into paid work. Now that's bucking the trend nationally in an area where we've got 78% pupil premium, where we haven't got big industry on our doorstep. So we're doing that despite where we live and despite our young people having special educational needs. So if we can do it, it's because of that. It's because the careers programme starts early, it's progressive. The senior leaders see the outcomes, they see the destinations, they see the confidence of the young people, they see them when they come in and they speak with confidence about their journey, about their lives and how it's changed their lives. And I think that for me gets us, it's like I say, it's always been a priority for us, but I think impact is the big word I would
Those
use
stories
there.
of impact on an
Yeah,
individual level, on a school level. And Ryan, you mentioned attendance, engagement earlier. What are some of the, and you've mentioned some brilliant systems and processes that you've put in place. Is there anything else that you could give as kind of advice to educators when really thinking about aligning work experience and wider careers programs to some of those wider improvement areas?
Yeah, our CEO has talked publicly about how there's a narrative around an attendance crisis, but maybe what that is in reality is an engagement crisis. And so I think careers and work to prepare young people for their futures is essential, really, in helping motivate young people to engage them in their learning and the purpose of their learning and set them up for adult success, whether that's in young adulthood or actually over the longer term of their lives. Some of the strategies I think are ones I've probably already alluded to, not looking at careers in isolation, but looking at it in the round, thinking about how it can be a core component that supports wider school improvement. So how we might integrate careers learning into curriculum so that young people can connect what they're learning in the classroom with its relevance or application in the wider world. They understand why they're learning, what they're learning, and how that applies.
And you mentioned that earlier, Jackie, didn't you, about curriculum planning and having a strategic approach to that?
And we can bring networks of teachers together to do that and create resources, as I alluded to earlier, where you almost co-create resources with employers.
Well, I think you've both made the case firmly for a whole school approach to modern work experience.
Did you get that? Did
Can I ask you one question? And that is, what would your dream modern work experience be? So come to you first, Ryan.
That's a really good question. I'm really tempted to say I'd just love to go and spend some time at Newcastle United because I'm a big Newcastle fan. That I'm not going to say that though. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny where your mind jumps to. My mind just jumped to when I was probably 5 or 6 and we lived on a main road, and on the main road you see buses coming past. I always remember thinking, I'd love to be a bus driver. And then I was really excited to get on the bus. Then you get a little bit older and you go on you get to go to an airport, you go to on a plane maybe, and that's super exciting. And I think ever since I've always loved travel. So I was just thinking, I think my dream work experience, and bear with me here, this might sound a little cheesy, would be to follow the journey of a suitcase. And so I knew you'd pull a face at that. I knew you would. But if you think about it, that it's about, I suppose, the different roles you could see in that journey. So how do you kind of prepare for that? Okay, where do you go and buy the suitcase? How does that work? Then you go to an airport. What are all the roles and functions there?
Jobs,
Then you're getting on a plane.
There's a careers lesson right there.
Isn't it just?
Oh yeah, nicking that one.
It's so you get on the plane, you go abroad or wherever. Then there's everything you see there, and then you do it all in reverse. So I just think, that would be my dream work experience, would be over a period of time to follow the journey of a suitcase.
Oh wow, how do I follow that? Definitely something with animals, most definitely. Maybe for the love of dogs, working at Battersea Dogs Home, would absolutely love that. I would do for nothing. I'd do voluntary. Yeah, that would be just my dream job. I love animals. I'd love to take them for a walk. I like nature. So yeah, definitely working somewhere like Battersea Dogs Home.
And as we've said today, there will be a huge machine behind Battersea Dogs Home
Absolutely.
and Newcastle United.
And the people
teams.
and the filming team, because it's a programme on the TV.
There we go.
And so but more hands-on with the dogs than anything else. Definitely animals.
Thank you both so much. Loved talking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our guests today, Ryan Gibson from Lift Schools and Jackie McGarry from Catcote Academy. We've discussed the importance of distributed leadership, taking a true whole team approach, and how work experience is a golden thread which can enhance the curriculum, leading to increased engagement in learning. We hope you found this episode helpful and interesting, and thank you for listening today. If you'd like any more information on the topics discussed today, please find the Careers and Enterprise Company website linked below, and like, subscribe and share our channel. Send your questions and thoughts to podcast@careersandenterprise.co.uk.